Thank you all for coming to this event in the Department of English, Rhetoric, and Writing's reading series. It is my honor now to introduce to you poet, editor, and environmentalist Anne Fisher-Wirth. Anne Fisher-Wirth was born in Washington, D.C. and grew up in Germany, Pennsylvania, and Japan before her family settled in Berkeley, California. She is the author of several poetry collections, including the forthcoming Mississippi, Dream Cabinet, her most recent, Carta Marina, and Blue Window. Known for her significant creative and editorial contributions to the field of environmental literature, she is also the co-editor with Laura Gray Street of the seminal work, the Eco-Poetry Anthology, widely considered the authoritative collection of contemporary American poetry about nature and the environment. Professor Fisher-Wirth has served as president of the Association for the Study of Literature and the Environment and has received fellowships from, among others, the Black Earth Institute, Mississippi Arts Commission, and the Fulbright Foundation, having held both a senior Fulbright at the University of Freiburg, Switzerland, and the Fulbright Distinguished Chair of American Studies at Uppsala University in Sweden. For more than 25 years, she has taught at the University of Mississippi in Oxford, where she currently teaches creative writing in environmental literature and directs the environmental studies minor. Anne Fisher-Wirth's poems bring together narratives of personal memory with those of our shared natural world. The waters are laced with memory, one poem states, and in celebration of this interconnectedness, another poem speaker writes to an unborn child, "This bright and swimming world will soon be yours." Whether the setting is Athens, or Vicksburg, or Berkeley, or Sweden, Anne Fisher-Wirth's poems attune to this brightness of nature and of familial as well as romantic love. The shadow side, however, of this deep connection is equally present in her work, which grieves this world's fragility, its mounting, accelerating losses by our hand. In her poem, Dream Cabinet, considering global warming and our possible future, her speaker imagines the trees vanishing, the blistered heat rising, saying, we will tip the planet past the healing point, and then is a critical question for this poet, who writes, where I live, they are paving the world, and only things with thorns survive. Who witnesses for us the public news of events such as the BP oil spill and all of its devastating particulars, the oil-coated pelicans, the collapse of fisheries, the death of corals, but also brings to light the private stories, as with Billy in Sweet Gum Country, who, she writes, shows us his arm, burned by the sun, where pesticides sensitized his skin, those years of his childhood, playing in Delta cotton fields. Recognizing that the world makes us no vow, that the shadow is inextricable from the lightness, showing us even the thistles, crowns of thorns with light on every sepal. Anne Fisher-Wirth's poems are laced with memory and graced with loving attention. Please welcome now Anne Fisher-Wirth.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sandy, for having me, Berry College for This is my first foray into intermedia presentation, and we've all learned a lot. So I'm going to be reading from my forthcoming book, Mississippi. But first I want to talk a little bit about it. There's a wonderful photographer in Mississippi, Maud Schuyler Clay, who lives in the Delta. She's 7th generation Mississippian, and she and I are friends. We've been friends for some years. So one of us said to the other, and we can't remember which one, sometime we should do something together. So a few years ago, she started emailing me photographs. And they were not photographs of people, they were just photographs, as you'll see, of landscapes. And she said, here's some photographs if you want to look at them and see if anything sparks some interest. So they're really beautiful, and I decided that I wanted to try to write poetry, not directly in response to her photographs, but in a kind of oblique relationship with them. So that started to happen and grew and grew, eventually became a book project. About half of it exists in the form of a museum exhibition, which if you're in Oxford, Mississippi right now, it's on display at the Ford Center, and that's really exciting for me. That is in the form of letterpress broadsides and framed photographs. And then just a week ago, there was a performance piece where 6 actors performed about 24 of the poems from the book, and that was really amazing to see. So it's a project that I have loved being involved with. It keeps growing and changing, and I wanted to read some of the poems for you tonight. The poems will be, I'll read them, and you'll be able to look at the photograph that goes with the poem. There's a foreword to the book. First of all, the title is Mississippi, and the epigraph, as you can see, is the imperishable quiet at the heart of form, a line from a poem by Theodore Recchi. So a bit from the foreword. In her recent memoir, The Faraway Nearby, the environmental writer Rebecca Solnit writes, "A place is a story, and stories are geography, and empathy is first of all an act of imagination, a storyteller's art, and then a way of traveling from here to there. Mississippi, where I've lived for the past 28 years, suffers from severe environmental degradation that can't be separated from its history of poverty and racial oppression. Yet the state also possesses great natural beauty and a rich and complex culture, one interwoven from the many voices that have made up its identity. Mississippi, the book, the collaborative project that I've undertaken with Maud Schuyler Clay, explores both this degradation and this beauty. Though I've lived in Oxford since 1988, I'm not from there. Or if you're not born in the South, you're never quite from the South. Consequently, though, in the past I often wrote poems about my own life. Sorry, I'm going to pee into the microphone, but forgive me. I've often written poems about the weather and my own experiences. I've hesitated to write about the people. Maud, in contrast, is from the South. I've admired her work for years, and as I said, we've talked about doing a collaborative project together. So living with her images, listening to her images, has allowed the Mississippi voices to speak through the images to me in some way that I don't quite understand. By now, altogether, there are about 50 poems, which I've come to understand as explorations of voice in its Mississippi plenitude and variety. Some time ago on Facebook, somebody snarkily commented, quote, "Though we hear people say things like mock hood and axe, that's not English." I completely disagree. I honor the voices no matter whose they are, both white and African American. I love the rich orality of Mississippi and Southern culture, and I've tried to express it. To write these poems, I listen not only to human voices, but also to the photographs. Out of silence, they emerge. So the first poem came to me when Maud commented. She sent me this beautiful photograph, and she commented that that boat belonged to a friend of hers that had just died, and that that friend would go and sit in a boat every day and just sort of be there as she was ill. Between two worlds the soul floats. Nothing remains but purple flowers smeared across the trees. A silver boat tucked in against the bank. The fecund pond like greenish velvet. Splotches of light. The whole known world. Hello, that boat. Empty. But be still. Almost as if you could walk on the water. So there's a little tiny bird in this picture, and it's not a heron, but I thought it was a heron, and it has to be a heron for my poem. This is in the voice of an older African-American man. The heron, he come from beyond like a messenger bird. He stand hours fishing in the one spot. I wonder what he be thinking. He'd be like my grandpa back in the day. Grandpa spent hours fishing in the one spot. Never could tell what he'd be thinking. This is a door that opens into the earth, and it really intrigued me. He comes to your door, raw-boned, bare-knuckled, looking for anything. Rake your driveway, wash your windows, offers to chop wood, cut grass, ma'am, soft voice, anything. And he gets to telling how, like the badger, a burrow being placed. How he sets his clothes and tools, the jar of nails, the saw, his blue-handled hammer along a bench he built in the hillside, and tucks his sheets, smooths the bear paw quilt my meemaw made. It's hard to keep things off the dirt, but he doesn't mind the baby spiders, them little white things in a filmy cloud near the door. He tells you about the blue tick hound, the horse he had as a kid, the job he wants to get mopping floors, stocking shelves at the jitney. He rakes, takes pay, doesn't want food, drinks a glass of water. Man, I've got what I need in the earth. So the next is a prep school girl. And this is the only picture that actually shows a person. This is in her voice. This guy from Berlin came to our school, the Pitt School Day, to teach on an art exchange. And he asked me to stay after and photograph me. He said I had the cheekbone like Monica Vitti. That's how he said it. You have the cheekbone like Monica Vitti. When he was turning my face this way and that to find the best light, I let him brush his arm across me. I've dated, but they were children compared to the artist from Berlin with his green eyes, his bracelet of tattoos, and spiky hair. I'm in love. That's why I feel strange. Not to mention, after he left, this stupid school was boring as ever. And oh my God, my parents made me go to cotillion. He gave the principal this signed photograph. When I see it every time, I swear to God, my body burns. I'm going to Germany next year. Till then, I just lay out. I don't want to do anything, just lay out on this blanket, wrap up in my blanket, and lay out. And the next one is another adolescent girl. It's funny, the theater production just recently, the girl who did this poem said, "This is my mom." So, pardon my French, my mama drives me apeshit. All those questions. Who was there? What did I eat? Who did I dance with? What were the other girls wearing? Did they compliment my hair, my dress, my shoes? Did I have a good time? And Lord, I can hardly breathe when she starts on, hold your spine straight, honey. Lamb, don't roll your shoulders, carry your head high. So what if you haven't developed, or girls want to develop? I promise you 6 ways to Sunday you'll fill out in time. Just gotta keep you pure and sweet, a petal fresh, and upstanding girl and man we want to marry. Well, a girl's entitled to a little privacy, but yes, I tell her they love my dress. I danced every dance, and Mikey tried to kiss me in the kitchen. She squeals. I certainly hope he slapped him, she says. She believed that, she believed anything, but anything to get her off my back. And what about guys? Well, of course we don't condone underage drinking, but neither do we condone the country police who put up speed traps to catch the boys with nicer cars. What's the good of setting a black mark on their futures? And hasn't your own son, too, been to the top of Sandfool Hill? I was never so embarrassed in my life as when a phone call came at midnight. Some woman saying that crazed with beer, our Mikey had run his car in a ditch, shot out the mailbox, and nearly killed her cat. Oh heavens, only with BBs. Fortunately, we know the judge. Big Mike and he went to school together. You love your sons so much when they're little. And then when they get older and their nature starts inciting them, what are they going to do with all that wild? So to write about Mississippi, sooner or later, is to write about race. And there's several poems in the book that are about Emmett Till, who of course, as you know, was murdered in 1955 in Money, Mississippi. And this first one is in the voice of a woman who remembers that time. He ain't done right to whistle and talk high, y'all baby, and filth to Carolyn Bryant. Even if he come from away, he ought to know how we do around here. And I sure as hell don't believe his uncle should have stood up and pointed out Roy and J.W. in that courthouse. I am so blessed tired of people, students and all coming down here to interview us just because we was alive then, making out like this is a bad town. Y'all don't know what we do for those who know their place. Well, just yesterday, Polly, I said to the woman who takes care of me, my husband don't use this red tea and these shoes, take them for Brewster. As for the rest, well, that was a long time ago. Most folks dead and store collapsed to ruins. Why you working it up again? And a contrasting voice. So that's the back staircase of the Sumner Courthouse where the trial took place, trying the murderers of Emmett Till. Well, you know, back then, couldn't no black man see justice down here? So when Mr. Wright came out that door after standing up in court pointing at the killers, he was marked for a dead man. Had to hightail to the station, leave his cotton in the fields, and get on out of here. I was just a kid. Didn't think like my folks. Was ashamed what they be thinking. So when they was talking that night over chicken and collard, saying, get the sheets, go rough up some of them, teach them what's right, I snuck off, hid in my closet, prayed, pray Lord. Didn't have no words for my misery, just pray Lord. So that's a mural of Robert Johnson, the great blues player who, legend has it, sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads. And this is a poem that includes bits of his story with some Bob Dylan and some Eudora Welty. He's waiting at the crossroads, dressed in a long black coat and crimson shoes. In his left hand, he carries a willow wand. Waving it, he says, come forward, and you do. You are hesitant and shy, yet full of singing.
Beyond you the river shines, the river that swallows the radiant boatman. Why do you wonder if this is Mr. Death? Because that is what the song says, that only death could offer such transformation. In his pocket, sprigs of lilac and thyme, sheltered in the crook of his right arm, something you do not see. It is dark, with feathers, a hen, an owl, a mockingbird. He waits for you. Say yes. Beyond him the water is silver and silver. But how can there be a crossroads where there is water? Which of the roads leads endlessly into the river? And this one does cheat a little bit with the time, but this is based on my own experience growing up in Brooklyn. 35 years we've lived in Mississippi. Today, listening to the radio, my husband tells me Dylan is 75 today. First time I heard him, Baez pulled his scrawny ass on stage to sing Blowin' in the Wind, maybe Hattie Carroll, at the Berkeley Folk Music Festival, where Lightnin' Hopkins dragged a straight-back wooden chair to a single mic. And in that summer of snarling dogs on the ends of chains and fire hoses that I'd watch every night on TV, and vow never, never, never to live in the South. Hopkins sang, I'm gonna walk with the Prince of Peace, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. So this is a young woman. Swear to God, oh, with Billy's group and the baby's cutting teeth, sometime I'm up all night, baby on the boob, me and Billy and baby crouching by the kettle in the steam tent. Sometimes I get so tired, my face breaks out all gray in little red spots. One supper I burned the fish sticks, sang up the kitchen something good. Billy looks at me, Mama. So I threw the plates to the floor and commenced to cry. But that sweet man cracks me a beer, scoops up Billy and the baby, winks at me, tells me, we'll mess with this shit later, puts us in the truck and drives us to the lake. Breathe, he tells me. Baby, breathe, and look at it. Just look at it. So this is the poem that I wrote most recently from the series, and that photograph is really mysterious to me. And I started thinking about who should be in those chairs, and then I remembered when I was a teenager living in Berkeley, and I first discovered about Shorter, Cheney, and Goodman, who'd been killed during Freedom Summer for trying to register people to vote. So for me, this evokes them, but it's really about whoever is conjured to your own imagination to fill those chairs. They're not here, are they? But you want them to be, don't you? Who are they? I don't know, but you know. So tell me who you see. Eyes like opals, calm as the saint that watches the winds from the hill. Did you love them? Did you kill them? Did you spend your whole life missing them? Nights they come back to take their places. This is how history plays you. Mountains, empires, crumble to dust. Red blood flows in their veins again. They drag their wet lives from the bottom of sleep. And the last poem. they ate in silence. When he turned to her, she welcomed him. Now as the seasons pass, the husk remains. Light filters down through spiky winter-bare trees. Once she laid plates on the table, turned and stooped to open the heavy oven door. Once he scraped rancid mud from his shoes. Light shines through walls from which boards are missing. The house is strawberry-colored roof, picking up pink from the fields. The sky drenched and pulsing. Light snakes away from the house in watery furrows. Look, you could follow the paths. You could pick your way gingerly, but what would you find there? So that's it. Thank you. Thanks, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be really happy to answer or try. Yes.
So after 30 years in Oxford, have you written a Faulkner poem?
Have I written a Faulkner poem? I haven't. No. Well, yeah, I did a little bit. Because we live right in the middle of town, and, you know, there's been a lot of development, a lot of new houses and so on, but we live right where Joe Christmas from Light in August escaped from jail, and that jail still stood when we moved there. And then he runs down looking for Hightower's house. He runs down this steep hill into Freemantown. And when we moved there, that was still just, Katsukali. So I was really obsessed with that because I could just drive home from school and drive up the hill and just imagine that the spirit of Joe Christmas was there. So I wrote this poem called Letter from Oxford, Mississippi, which was, it's in my first book, and it was really about trying to come to terms with thinking about racial violence, you know. And Joe Christmas makes a presentation. He's the subject of the end of that poem. Yeah. Aside from that, I haven't really written much about Faulkner. Yeah. But we walk in those woods all the time when we go to Roanoke, and I teach Faulkner. And we live really close to the graveyard. So sometimes I can just imagine that I can hear these voices from his grave, you know, this kind of rumbling of great writer energy from his grave. Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you.